Thank you for tuning in to leaddeveloper.com, where we simplify complex property development feasibilities, investment analysis, and everything real estate. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our Google Sheets-based feasibility suite streamlines the toughest aspects of real estate. Lead Developer Feasibility Suite is trusted by thousands in over 17 countries. Our tools cover everything from quick assessments to detailed cash flow projections and more. Sign up today at leaddeveloper.com for unlimited free access to our expanding library of real estate tools. No credit card needed. Plus, get full support through Edge with step-by-step guidance, exclusive courses, and resources designed for your success. Turn numbers into narratives that win over investors and lenders. Join Lead Developer now.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at the world of retail development.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it should be fun. And we're going to be focusing on this article we found called Retail Development Made Easy.
Kitschy.
Yeah, very kitschy. Now, I know this might not sound like the most thrilling topic to everyone out there.
Right.
But believe me, whether you dream of building your own shopping empire or just kind of curious about how those malls and plazas pop up around us, we're going to break down the whole thing, like what really goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah. You know, it's funny how we interact with these retail spaces every single day, but like
Every day.
we hardly ever stop and think about what it took to get them there.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to uncover today.
I like it.
We'll be looking at the different types of developments, all the hidden costs and risks, even the psychology behind good retail design.
Ooh, the psychology. I like that.
Right. It's not as simple as just throwing up a building and hoping people show up.
Yeah. Definitely not. There's a whole ecosystem of factors that contribute to a successful retail development.
It really is an ecosystem, isn't it?
It is.
So let's start with the basics. The article mentions everything, from those little corner shops to those mega malls.
Right. And you know, those smaller developments, those corner shops, those strip malls,
Yeah.
it's easy to think they're pretty simple, but
You would think.
there's a lot more to it. Take parking regulations, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Those can make or break a business.
For sure. For sure.
And zoning laws, like what can even be built where
Oh, yeah, that's true.
it's a lot more than meets the eye.
Yeah, you just don't think about it when you're just like running in for a carton of milk or something.
Right.
Now, when you scale things up, though, like those big shopping centers and malls,
Okay. The
thinking-
complexity just explodes.
explodes. It's a whole other world.
Absolutely. You're talking about a different level of expertise, different resources,
Completely different.
managing so many tenants, figuring out these complicated lease agreements,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of times working with the local government on these big public-private partnerships.
It's massive.
It's a whole different ballgame.
So, this deep dive, we're going to be focusing more on those smaller developments.
Right.
But the article does mention that a lot of the core principles,
Oh, yeah.
they apply no matter what the scale is.
Absolutely. The fundamentals are the same across the board. Understanding the market,
Right.
finding the right tenants, and designing a space that's attractive and functional.
And that makes people want to come back.
Exactly. That's key, whether it's a single storefront or a sprawling mall.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of success, this article kind of paints a rosy picture
Oh, yeah.
of the benefits of retail development. Things like establishing a local monopoly.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, like you're the only game in town.
Yeah.
And then just that potential for massive capital growth.
The money.
The money, right. I mean, if you secure that prime location, limited competition, and your tenants are thriving.
Your property value is going to go through the roof.
Exactly. It's like playing Monopoly in real life.
I love it.
But of course, there's always a catch.
There's always a catch.
And the article does throw in some of those harder realities.
Like what?
Well, things like inefficient land use.
Oh, okay.
Or just those sky-high land prices, which can really eat into those potential profits.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then something I hadn't really considered,
Yeah.
the risk of those tenant businesses failing.
Oh, right?
Yeah, the article mentions that a lot of new businesses sadly don't make it past the first few years.
That's true.
And guess what? Retail centers tend to attract a lot of those new ventures.
So even with the perfect location, it's not a guarantee.
Not at all.
It all depends on those businesses themselves.
Exactly. And that brings us to the role of the developer.
The developer.
This article makes them sound like a superhero, like a builder and a negotiator and financial whiz all in one.
It's true. And what's interesting is that this article really highlights that human element,
Oh.
which you don't always think about. You're dealing with city officials,
Right.
architects,
Right.
contractors, and of course, all those tenants.
It's a lot of personalities.
It takes serious patience, diplomacy, all those soft skills.
Yeah, that's something you don't often hear about.
You don't.
The article even quotes an industry expert who said, and I quote,
Okay.
"To be successful in retail development, you must first work for several years under the supervision of an experienced developer."
Wow. So it's not something you can just jump into.
No, definitely not. It's not just about construction and finance. It's understanding the whole industry,
The whole thing.
how shoppers behave, and those long-term trends that are shaping the future of retail.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It sounds pretty intense. And then there's location,
Oh, location, location, location.
the oldest rule in the book.
That's true.
But this article breaks down why it's so crucial.
Yeah, it goes deeper than just saying location, location, location.
Deeper.
It lists all those nitty-gritty factors developers think about, like travel time,
Right.
highway patterns, how visible it is from the road, and you know what? Even that potential for future expansion.
So you got to be thinking way ahead.
Way ahead.
Wow, that actually reminds me of something I saw a while back.
Yeah.
There was this brand new shopping center, beautifully designed, great shops,
Sounds nice.
the whole 9 yards, but it was tucked away in this weird spot.
Oh.
Terrible visibility from the main road.
So no one could find it.
Nobody could find it, and it just tanked. Totally went under.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it was. It just shows that even with a great design,
Location is still king.
it really is. And that brings us to market analysis.
Ah, yes, market analysis.
Because it's not just about finding an empty lot on a busy street.
No, you
It's
got to go deeper.
much deeper.
You need to know who lives in that area.
Right.
What are their shopping habits? What kind of competition's already out there?
Yeah, are you even needed in this area?
Exactly. It's about figuring out if there's a real desire for this type of development.
And will it even make money?
That's a big one. You have to be able to project that potential sales volume.
So you got to be able to crunch the numbers.
You do. And all those demographics and data points in a market analysis,
Yeah.
those aren't just numbers on a page. They tell you if this development's going to meet the needs of the community.
And if it will actually be viable.
Viable. Yes, that's the key.
So you got to make sure it's not just a pipe dream, but something that people actually want and need.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you've nailed down the location. The market research looks good.
All right.
Now comes the fun part,
What's that?
the design.
Ah, the design. Now we're talking.
This is where things get really interesting because, as the article says, good retail design is about understanding shopper psychology.
Shopper psychology. I like it.
Right, you're creating an experience, not just a building.
You said it.
The article lists some key principles,
Right, yeah.
like how the flow of pedestrians, clear layouts, the right mix of tenants,
Yeah.
even just those inviting shop fronts,
Those are important.
can make or break a retail space,
They can.
crafting a journey for the shoppers.
It really is. Think about those big destination stores.
Like the big department stores.
Yeah, those act like magnets, drawing people in.
They do.
And even something as simple as where you place the entrances
Yeah.
can have a huge impact on how many people walk through the door.
I remember reading a study about this.
Oh, really?
Apparently, shoppers tend to lose interest after walking like 250 meters.
So there's a limit to their patience.
Yeah, there's only so much effort people are willing to put in.
Makes sense.
And that's why those designers, they use these little psychological tricks to keep people engaged.
I never would have thought about that.
Keep them moving through the space, but not feeling lost or overwhelmed.
Right, you got to find that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the location,
Yep.
the market research, even the psychology behind good design.
Sounds good.
But the article mentions another big piece of the puzzle,
What's that?
hidden costs.
Oh, no, there are always hidden costs.
Always. It says they can add up really quickly.
I bet.
Obviously, you have those big construction costs.
Right.
But there's so much more.
Like what?
Well, the article mentions that local authorities often require these traffic studies
All right.
to see how the new development's going to affect the traffic flow.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then there are those parking regulations we mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah,
They can really impact the layout and the costs.
they can.
And you got to think about creating that nice atmosphere,
Right.
the landscaping, the lighting, the comfy seating areas.
It all adds to the ambiance.
It does, but it all costs money.
True.
And I imagine fire safety requirements add another layer of complexity.
Oh, absolutely. Public spaces like shopping centers,
Especially those.
they have to meet all sorts of fire codes.
Like what?
Well, you got to have proper fire suppression systems,
Of course.
alarms, clear evacuation routes. It all adds up.
Makes sense.
So it's not just the building itself. There are all these additional factors.
Yeah, you got to think about all those unseen things.
You do. And to manage all that complexity,
You need a good project manager.
oh, a good project manager is essential.
Essential. They keep the whole thing from falling apart.
They do. They anticipate challenges.
Yeah.
They coordinate with all those different teams, make sure everything stays on budget and on schedule.
It's a big job.
Huge. They're like the glue that holds the whole development process together.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I never realized how much goes into creating these spaces.
It's a lot more than meets the eye.
It really is. And we haven't even talked about the people who bring those spaces to life. The tenants.
Ah, yes, the tenants, the lifeblood of a retail center.
Exactly. The article has this great line.
Okay.
It says, a well-built center with lousy tenants will be a financial disaster.
Ouch, but so true.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Getting the right mix of tenants can make or break the whole thing.
it really can. And there's an art to evaluating potential tenants.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just look at their business plan.
Right.
You have to ask, are they in a stable industry? Do they have a good track record? Are their financials in order?
You got to do your due diligence.
You do. And sometimes it even means running credit checks.
Like you're vetting a roommate.
Exactly, because you're essentially entering into a long-term partnership with these tenants.
That's a good way to think about it.
So you want to make sure it's a good fit for everyone involved.
It's all about those relationships.
It is.
And that's where those lease agreements come in.
Ah, the lease agreements.
The article mentions that those agreements can look very different for the big anchor tenants versus the smaller stores.
Oh, absolutely. Those anchor tenants, those big names, they often have more leverage.
Makes sense?
They might negotiate lower rent, longer lease terms, even get the developer to help with the costs of setting up their space.
So the developer has to walk a fine line.
They do. You want those big names to draw in the crowd.
Like, sure.
But you also got to make sure the lease terms make sense for your business in the long run.
It's a balancing act. And the article goes into detail about some of the key things that should be in every lease agreement.
Like what?
Stuff like how long the lease is, those rent escalation clauses,
Right.
and even provisions for what happens if the building needs to be rebuilt, like after a fire or a natural disaster.
Oh, those are important.
It's about being prepared for anything.
Exactly. Because you never know what might happen.
And those clauses, they lay out everyone's responsibilities if something unexpected happens.
It's all about having that clarity up front.
Right. So it seems like those lease agreements are where all the planning and negotiation finally come together.
You could say that. It's the legal foundation of that relationship between the landlord and the tenant.
And getting those details right is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. It sets the stage for a smooth and successful partnership.
So we've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have.
Location, market research, securing those tenants, even those all-important lease agreements.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but the developer's job still isn't done, is it?
Not even close. There's a whole other layer to consider. Property management.
Oh, right. Keeping those spaces running smoothly.
Exactly. But the article makes a point of saying that managing a retail center,
Yeah.
it's different from managing other types of properties.
How so?
Well, with a retail center, you're not just maintaining a building.
Right.
You're fostering a whole community.
The community.
You're bringing in tenants,
Yeah.
keeping those shoppers happy,
Right.
even organizing events and promotions to attract more people.
It's like you're running a little town.
That's a great way to put it.
So a successful retail center manager, they're like a problem solver,
Yes.
a community builder, and a marketing guru all rolled into one.
They wear a lot of hats, and they need to be adaptable.
Because the retail landscape is constantly changing.
Constantly. Things like online shopping, the rise of experiential retail,
Right.
even just shifts in demographics.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is.
So developers can't just rely on what worked in the past.
Nope. They need to be forward-thinking and ready to adjust to those new trends.
They had the curve.
Exactly. They got to figure out what shoppers and tenants want today and anticipate what they'll want tomorrow.
It's a fascinating but challenging world.
It is.
And it makes you realize that those shopping centers we see every day,
Yeah.
they're the result of a lot of careful planning and decision-making.
A lot more goes on behind the scenes than people realize.
This has been so insightful.
I'm glad.
I'm definitely going to look at those retail spaces with a new perspective from now on.
I encourage everyone to do the same.
And we'll be right back after a quick break to dive even deeper into this world of retail development.
We'll be back.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So we've talked about all the work that goes into developing a retail space.
A lot of work.
A lot of work. But now I'm thinking about, like, once that space is built,
Yeah.
How do you actually get people in there? How do you find those tenants?
That's where the marketing and the leasing come in.
The market. Okay.
Yeah, because you can have the most beautiful space,
Right.
but if you don't have those tenants and those shoppers coming in, it's all for nothing.
It's just an empty shell.
Exactly.
Now, this article makes it clear that the whole marketing process, it starts way before the first brick is even laid.
Oh, yeah, way before. You got to secure those anchor tenants early on.
Anchor tenant.
Yeah, those big names that really draw in the crowds.
Oh, right. Like the big department stores or those popular brands.
Exactly. They're like the foundation.
The foundation.
They create the buzz, get other businesses excited about the project.
So it's like a domino effect.
It really is. You get those big names on board, and the rest start to fall into place.
So in those early stages, it's all about networking.
A lot of it is, yeah. You're building relationships, talking to national brands, local businesses, letting them know something big is coming.
Creating that anticipation.
Exactly. You want to generate some excitement even before the construction starts.
That's really smart.
And then, as the project develops, the marketing becomes more formal.
More structured.
Yeah, you're bringing in agencies, leasing brokers, maybe even a PR team.
So it's a whole team effort to get those tenants.
It is. It's a full court press.
I like that. A full court press.
And you need those strong marketing materials.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, a really well-designed brochure
Right.
showcasing the location, the whole vision for the space.
The whole vibe.
Yeah. And of course, highlighting that potential for success.
You got to paint that picture.
You do. But potential tenants, they're savvy.
Right.
They don't just want glossy brochures.
They want the facts.
Exactly. They want to see the data.
So you got to back up those promises with some hard numbers.
Got to give them the demographics, the spending habits in the area, the projected foot traffic.
And how much money they can potentially make.
That's the big one. You got to show them the potential sales volume.
So it's about balancing the dream,
The vision.
with the reality.
With the viability, yeah. It's got to be a sound business decision.
So it's all about those feasibility studies we always hear about.
Oh, yeah, those feasibility studies are crucial.
What exactly do they look at?
Well, they really dig into the supply and demand for that specific location. Are there enough potential customers? What are they buying? Is there already a ton of competition?
So it's about making sure there's a real need for this type of development.
That's a big part of it. And like you said, they look at the potential for profit.
They got to make sure it's not just a pipe dream.
Exactly. And what's interesting with retail,
Yeah.
it's not just about the numbers. You also have to consider the tenant mix.
Oh, right. Like who's going to be next to who?
Exactly. And the overall image of the center.
Oh,
Does it fit with the community?
that makes sense.
So those feasibility studies are like that reality check.
They keep you grounded.
They do.
All right, so feasibility studies look good. The marketing's in full swing.
We're rolling.
You're attracting those potential tenants.
Yeah.
What's the next hurdle?
The lease agreements.
Ah, yes, the dreaded lease agreements.
Well, they're not dreaded.
Maybe not dreaded, but definitely important.
Oh, they're crucial. And as we talked about earlier, those agreements can look very different for those anchor tenants.
Right, the big names get special treatment.
Well, they often have more negotiating power.
Makes sense.
They might get lower rent, longer leases.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes the developer even helps pay for setting up their space.
That's a lot.
It is. But you got to keep in mind,
Yeah.
those anchor tenants, they bring in the foot traffic.
Right, they attract all those other businesses and shoppers.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a give and take.
So the developer really has to weigh those costs and benefits.
Absolutely. You want those big names.
Yeah.
But the lease terms have to make sense for your business in the long run.
It's all about finding that balance.
Finding that balance, that's the key. Now, the article does go into some of those key components that every lease agreement should have.
Like what kind of stuff?
Well, things like the length of the lease, how long it's going to last,
Okay.
and rent escalation clauses.
What are those?
So you know how everything keeps getting more expensive.
Inflation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So a rent escalation clause basically says that the rent will go up over time.
So it keeps pace with inflation.
Exactly. It protects the landlord from losing money.
That's smart.
And then you've got provisions for rebuilding.
Rebuilding.
Yeah, something happens to the building.
Oh, right, like a fire or some kind of disaster.
Exactly. Those clauses say who's responsible for what if the building needs to be rebuilt.
Makes sense. You got to be prepared for the worst case scenario.
You do. It's all about having those details laid out up front.
So these lease agreements, they're not just about the money.
No, they're really the foundation of the whole relationship between the landlord and the tenant.
So getting them right is crucial.
Absolutely. It sets the tone for the entire partnership.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. From finding the perfect location to securing those tenants and hammering out those lease agreements.
It's a long road.
It is. But even after all that,
There's still more.
the developer's job isn't over, is it?
Nope, not even close. Now we got to think about managing the property.
Property management, right?
Yeah, keeping those spaces running smoothly.
But the article says that managing a retail center is different from managing, say, an apartment building.
Oh yeah, it's a whole different animal.
In what way?
Well, you're not just taking care of a building, you're nurturing a community.
A community.
Yeah, you're attracting and keeping those tenants happy,
Right.
keeping the shoppers happy, and you know what else? You're organizing events, promotions, trying to get more people in the door.
It sounds like a full-time job.
It is. It's a lot more than just collecting rent and fixing leaky faucets.
So you're not just a landlord.
Nope, you're a problem solver, a community builder, and a marketing whiz all rolled into one.
That's a lot of hats to wear.
It is, and you got to be adaptable.
Because the retail world is always changing.
Always. Things like online shopping, experiential retail,
Right.
even demographics. It's constantly evolving.
Developers really have to stay on their toes.
They do. They got to keep up with those trends, understand what shoppers and tenants want, and anticipate what's coming next.
This is fascinating stuff. It makes you realize how much work goes into creating those spaces we visit every day.
A lot of work goes into it.
And we're going to dive even deeper into those trends shaping the future of retail after the break.
Welcome back, everybody. So we've been talking all about the ins and outs of retail development.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards. It's a lot more complex than I ever imagined.
It really is.
But now I'm really curious about how all these trends we keep hearing about,
Like what?
online shopping,
Yeah.
the demand for experiences, like how are those shaping the future of retail?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's what keeps every developer up at night.
I bet.
Because the retail world is always evolving.
It's constantly changing. It is. And the developers who can anticipate those changes, who can adapt.
They're the ones who'll succeed.
Exactly. Survival of the fittest, you could say.
And this article we've been talking about,
Yeah.
it really emphasizes that point,
What point is that?
that it's not enough to just build something that looks nice.
Oh, right. You can't just put up a pretty building and expect people to flock to it.
Exactly. It takes more than that.
It does. You have to create a whole experience.
An experience, okay?
Yeah, a space where people want to be, a place where commerce and community come together.
So it's not just about the shopping.
It's not. It's about creating a sense of place, something unique.
Something that sets you apart.
Exactly. And that's where understanding those trends comes in.
Like how?
Well, you got to think about what people are looking for today.
Right.
What do they want from a shopping experience? Are they looking for convenience? Are they looking for unique products they can't find online? Are they looking for a sense of community?
So you have to know your audience.
You got to know your audience, you got to know your market, and you got to be able to anticipate those needs.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Because what works today might not work tomorrow.
And that's where things get tricky.
They do, but it's also what makes it so exciting.
I guess so. The article talks about the importance of creating a sense of place.
Yes, a sense of place.
It's not just about buying stuff anymore.
It's not. It's about creating a destination, a place where people want to spend time, even if they're not necessarily spending money.
So it's got to be more than just a collection of shops.
It has to be. Think about it. What makes you want to hang out somewhere?
Well, I like places that are comfortable.
Right, comfortable.
Maybe there's some good food options.
Yeah, a place to grab a bite.
Maybe there's some entertainment, things for the kids to do.
Exactly. It's about creating that multifaceted experience.
And I've noticed that a lot of shopping centers are starting to do that.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, they're hosting farmers markets, live music, even fitness classes.
I've seen that.
It's like they're becoming more than just places to shop.
They are. They become community hubs.
Community hubs, I like that.
It's about bringing people together, giving them reason to come back, even if they're not buying anything.
So it's about building those relationships.
It all comes back to relationships, doesn't it?
It does. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's amazing to think about all the thought and planning that goes into creating these spaces.
And the creativity.
The creativity, yeah. It's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about people.
It's about people. It's about understanding what makes them tick.
Exactly. I'm definitely going to look at those shopping centers with a whole new appreciation now.
I hope so. And I encourage all our listeners to do the same.
Yeah. Next time you're at the mall or a plaza, really take a look around.
Pay attention to the details.
The layout, the mix of stores, even the placement of those benches, all those things we talked about.
You'll start to see those spaces in a whole new light.
And if you find yourself drawn to a particular space, if it makes you want to linger,
Yeah.
if it makes you feel welcome and engaged,
Then the developers have done their job.
they've succeeded in creating that sense of place.
Exactly. And that's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
It is. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
Thanks for joining us and sharing your expertise.
It's good, my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring those retail spaces.
And keep asking those questions.
Because you never know what you might discover. Until next time, on The Deep Dive.